You're watching Force 13's live streaming service.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be around this planet that we call Earth. This is Force 13 Live. We are tracking Major Hurricane Beryl, and we have been over the last week or so. It feels like an eternity since this thing formed, to be honest. Peaking as a Category 5 recently, but now it is just passing the Grand Cayman Islands and is targeting its next target, Mexico. My name is Ethan, and I am joined right now by my live team consisting of a few people. We have Nathan, Christian, Maury, Orlando, and I believe we also have Derek, which is on the road towards the Washington, D.C. area. So let's get on to the latest with this hurricane right now. What are we witnessing in the recon pass? I do realize that recon are in there right now, and any thoughts from the team right now on this storm's latest developments?
Well, first of all, what a great intro, Ethan. Well done with that. And Ethan's running coverage today, at least this morning. But looking at recon, looking quite interesting. Still getting some pretty strong winds up near 110 knots flight level. Pressure, I'm trying to figure out if that pressure's still rising, but it's in the upper 960s.
Absolutely. If you do have any comments or questions, be sure to tag us at Force13. It'll light up nice and bright and orange for us to answer in due course. Of course, Beryl is still a major hurricane. National Hurricane Center's latest advisory went with winds of 120 miles per hour. That's a mid-range Category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. And a pressure, I believe, of 968 millibars.
Yep, the last advisory. Wind shear still not doing as much as we would like it to, is it?
I mean, wind shear is getting to the storm somewhat, but it's not getting to its full extent just quite yet. Obviously, we've been seeing Beryl sort of fight off this wind shear now for a little bit of time now. And here is the latest National Hurricane Center's forecast cone on the left-hand side of your screen. You can see that there are now hurricane warnings in place for the Yucatan Peninsula, the eastern coast of it. I believe that they've been there for, how long, Nathan, now? At least a day, right?
The hurricane warnings, it must have been a good 24 hours now. It was last night that they extended that tropical storm warning to the other side.
Well, first off, I must apologize. The bottom bar, I'm still working on it at the moment, so that's why it's on the U.S. severe weather risk stuff. So I am working on that. That is coming in just a few minutes, but the left bar and everything else is accurate. It's sort of a new streaming template for me that I've been working on for the past few months. I do apologize if there are any problems with it, but we'll sort those out as we come.
Working hard as always, but still a serious area of uncertainty with the later cone there as well, as we were looking at that chart. It's a big bulb at the end of that cone, which is certainly for me, I'm concerned about, because we know Beryl and playing up its old tricks. And to be honest with you, Ethan, I'm looking at GFS ensembles right now, and the majority of them now take it into Texas as a straight up landfall there, hurricane landfall near Corpus Christi.
There is the off chance of that, and there's still a few question marks about what the storm does whenever it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. Let's there's the intro again. That's fantastic. So I'll pull up the NHC's forecast cone here, and you can see there are still what is it doing? There are still a few questions here. So if Beryl says that it goes on the southern end of this forecast cone and goes straight into Mexico, that would be a weaker scenario. However, if Beryl strengthens considerably and, say, is up to the mid to high ranges of Category 1, getting towards Category 2, I wouldn't even discount a major if it has enough time, to be honest. But if we do see a storm that strong, not say we will, but it would be a more northerly outlier, and that would mean a more threat towards the Texas coastline. So it's something that we need to watch very closely.
I don't like it right now. It looks like it's jogging northwest again, this Beryl.
I mean, of course, if it does jog towards the northwest, we know that this would become a stronger storm, as Ethan just pointed out. This system likely will try to become stronger, but of course, if it does move towards the south, then we will likely have a weaker storm. However, this system, we really have to pay attention to the ridges and troughs that are along the United States coastline at the moment. If there is a trough that comes down, probably in the Texas-Louisiana area, then that will drag the storm up into that region where there's higher sea surface temperatures and possibly make it into a stronger storm as it approaches a landfall in Texas. However, if we don't get that trough and the trough remains further west, then we likely will see more of a track into northern Mexico.
How about the storm right now, though, Nathan? You've got some imagery up, I see, and it looks interesting.
It looks like it did just before it strengthened when it hit Jamaica. We got these big cloud top bands at times into the minus 80s on the northern side, and you've got a big gap in the southeast side, which is clearly struggling because earlier on they only managed to get 65 knot SFMRs in the southeast quad. Southeast quad struggling. They just got new passes a little while ago, so and that indicates that it's northeast that's strongest. Although a little bit earlier, northwest was strongest, but they're pretty close together. They're up above the 100 knot mark in terms of flight level winds. NOAA 3 just went through southwest to northeast. They got 105 knot flight level winds, 90 knot SFMRs. AF302 went in southeast earlier and then went out northeast, and they got flight level of 105 knots and SFMR of about 90 knots. And I'm sure someone's going to pull up that data as well, because there's been some crazy suspect SFMRs on the outer bands of the storm up to 160 knots, which is obviously not true. So someone's going to fall for that, aren't they? But
yep,
those are the two planes in the storm right now. And they're both, in fact, so NOAA 3 on the northeast side, AF302 northwest, and they may just be about to turn northwest to southeast, perhaps.
So it does seem to be like the general story at the moment is that Beryl is weakening. I don't really know. Can we call it slowly, or is it more very slow, or is it more rapid? What do you think?
It's not rapid. It probably weakened a little bit. My take is that it's probably 115 miles per hour now. Still Category 3. But satellite did improve for a bit, and
Near Jamaica, yeah.
I think right now it's just holding.
I'd be inclined to agree at the moment.
Seems like that's the current story right now that's been going on for the last couple days. It's been forecasted to weaken, but then it doesn't rapidly weaken despite the dry air and dry air intrusion and some high shear levels. So it's pretty doing a good job of maintaining its intensity and pressure despite its current phase of weakening. It's been really gradual over the last couple days.
Its last drop zone was 40 minutes ago in the eye. It was 972 millibars with a 28 knot wind. So it's nearly just probably 969. So upper 960s on the pressure. And again, it's pretty much holding. I had a question or comment earlier from Jesus. I've lost the comment now, but he said that every storm so far has hit Mexico, 3 for 3 when this happens later today, and still could deviate slightly north, which is my concern here, Ethan, because at present it looks like it may make landfall in sparse areas, but it's not much of a trek northwards to get to, first of all, Tulum, and then to the more touristy areas of Playa del Carmen and Cancun and Cozumel. So the populations rise quite quickly further north.
Barbaria and Cesar is... I've spoken to Cesar lately. He's actually quite happy that 3 tropical storms have hit his area.
Yeah, well,
going to, rather.
it's
Apparently,
been,
he's saying that they need the rain.
Well, that's Cesar for you. But here is the look at the visible imagery. Sun rising over Beryl right now. Clearly north side heavy, so maybe there is a bit of southerly wind shear pushing on the storm. That might be why the southeastern side is basically gone.
Maybe, but tell you what, Ethan, south side has been poor since Jamaica.
Yeah.
South side has always been dragging this down. North side's been pretty exemplary with... Just get a quick eye wall temperature check. Cloud tops minus 85 still. How about that?
So there are still going to be some. Question here: will there possibly be more stronger systems like Beryl with how well the ocean heat content looks like across the Caribbean Sea? Entirely possible.
Beryl has tracked over almost the whole corridor of high OHC. I don't think there'll be... well, if the conditions didn't change, I don't think another storm could do it more perfectly. But conditions will change throughout the summer.
Yeah, ocean heat content hasn't really been tapped into as much as Beryl would like. Sure, it had the warm waters of the Caribbean Sea to help it intensify and help it, do its thing. But overall, this storm's been consistently moving at 20-25 miles an hour, so it really hasn't been able to tap into that ocean heat content as much as, say, a storm moving at 10-15 miles an hour would.
And just to point out the storm size on the earlier advisory, storm force winds up to 150 knots northeast, 150 nautical miles northeast, not 150 knots, 34 knots, 64 knots, which is hurricane force winds extending out up to 40 nautical miles northeast, and less amounts in the other quadrants. To be honest, that is pretty similar, in fact, a bit smaller than what it was when it was over Jamaica.
Absolutely, and that's something that I just want to point out real quick on my screen, because I actually have the ability to do this. If we bring back on the latest NHC's forecast, and we bring back on the forecasted wind radii, you can see here the Yucatan Peninsula, basically all of the populated areas are still going to get tropical storm force winds, whether they like it or not.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why those warnings are out there.
And if we get those northerly track, then they might be up to hurricane force winds. But still, it doesn't seem very likely that a track north of Tulum would occur. because that, of course, is north of the cone. So,
Yeah, Cozumel. Were they completely outside the cone there,
let me
Cozumel,
check.
or
I
it's just very near?
I believe the southern tip of Cozumel is inside the cone.
yeah, Cozumel
Yeah,
is
the
that
southern.
little island, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
the southern.
the southern tip of it
Oh,
is
yeah.
just barely within the forecast cone.
Yeah, I'm just watching your stream back, so just commenting on what I see on your screen there. Uh, so it could do a little. Well, I think all of us could say that our trust in this storm is very low, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
this is still a
Yes.
low confidence forecast. I would say that we have probably right now medium confidence up to its landfall in Mexico. Obviously, the track forecast up to Mexico is more more certain than the track past the Yucatan Peninsula, but in general, we do still have very low confidence in its identity and track forecast in the Gulf of Mexico. And that's something that we're going to need to watch very closely over the next 24 hours. And I would say once it gets probably emerging off the Yucatan Peninsula in, say, 36 hours from now, that's when we'll have a little bit of a better idea about where the storm's going to go.
Could you show us that wind field forecast as it gets further forward later
Yeah,
in the forecast period?
it only goes out to the day 3 point, which is here. I'll see if I can. Yeah, there's the dots and everything, but
Gives you a good idea, though.
But the dots are off because that's how WSV3 interpolates things, and it's kind of stupid. But here, I just want us to turn on the forecasted models as well, and you can see it lines up fairly nice with what the National Hurricane Center is forecasting right now in terms of all these lines and everything. Let me see what each one of these lines are. Is it's basically each individual model being tweaked little by little and being reran over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, with like one slight tweak in the data, and that is what's bringing up all these scenarios. And you can obviously see some are bringing the storm up towards Houston. Those are going to be your stronger scenarios, and there's still some tracking it more towards the south into Mexico, near where Alberto and Chris went into.
Yeah, whichever forecast you look at, I just looked at GFS and Euro ensembles, and it's both the same. Basically, if it's strong tropical storm, maybe minimal hurricane, it will be a Mexico landfall, and if it gets stronger than that, it's going further north. That's pretty much what they're saying.
Yeah, I don't see what's the limit on that. I mean, there's a high chance of. I mean, looking at the icon model, even a bit of a the GFS. There's a northern turn, and then probably even a bit of a northeastern element to that, as that trough that's going to be coming into the plains tries to create a weakness for this system. So it'll feel it more the stronger it is. And given the fact that Beryl has overperformed again and again, and with the uncertainty of how the interaction with shear will be in the Gulf of Mexico, I mean, if it ends up being favorable, which has happened multiple times, especially with it moving with the shear flow, it could end up enhancing the system and making it more of an intense cyclone, as we saw on the Icon model recently, which has been pretty persistent in that over the last 36 hours or so.
Just got a question here. I have a place in the beach in Puerto Morelos, just south of Cancun. Friends are there. How hard do you guys think Puerto Morelos is going to get hit?
Yes. Hurricane conditions possible. Of course, you're in a hurricane warning at the moment. And not forgetting that for places like Puerto Morelos and Playa del Carmen, Cozumel is going to be a bit of a barrier, hopefully. So, with that in mind, I would suggest to prepare for near hurricane force winds and hurricane gusts. It won't be the worst storm to ever reach these places. They're no strangers to strong hurricanes in the past, but obviously necessary preparations for potential hurricane impacts there.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take some more questions here. Just scrolling back up towards the live chats.
Oh, just before that, I just want to mention a recon drop sond in the northeast eye wall for what it's worth. At 989 millibars, they got 84 knot wind.
You said 969 millibars or 89?
989, quite far out.
That's very interesting. Another question here: will there possibly be more ocean heat content, or will there possibly be stronger storms that will track similar to Beryl over its ocean heat content? Entirely possible later on this season. For all we know, Beryl could just be a pre-show for this season. Obviously, we did just enter July, and we have August, September, and October to go through. I believe that's like. How much of the Atlantic hurricane season happens within those 3 months, Nathan? Is like 90% or something like that on average?
I can't remember now.
Probably higher.
Well, at least 90, yeah.
When I did my little feature in the last week of June, it was 90% after that, so it was probably still about 85%. You know?
Question here. Nathan keeps saying North Eye Wall, but how do they determine that when we can't see an eye at all right now on satellite imagery?
Well, even if you couldn't see an eye on radar imagery, the recon planes are finding those winds, circular winds, and so it's very easy to spot which side of the storm is which. Only if the storm is struggling to even get a circulation does that become a little bit more convoluted, and that's only in the very initial phases of storm development when they're trying to find a center, and that gives it named storm status in the beginning. So it's never going to be a problem for Beryl as long as we're tracking it until well after it makes its final landfall. Only then will it ever lose its circulation.
And it's also pretty easy to spot the eye wall or parts of an eye wall on satellite imagery, even if a storm looks like Beryl, because you can clearly see on Nathan's screen here. I'll blow it up here. You can very clearly see the rotation that we're seeing right now with the storm.
Rotation on the north side, but whilst we look at that, south side is still looking awfully poor, and we're not seeing much going on down there. So it would suggest, if you looked at just satellite, that it may have an open eye, but from what I was hearing from radar, it's closed, right?
I believe so. I'm not sure if we have a vortex data message that might suggest that the eye wall is open.
That would be good.
We just got one, actually, and the eye wall is closed again.
Yeah,
so
I figured it would.
So this storm, it has been having times where the eye wall's been open and closing. This kind of thing is normal with shear events. Obviously, shear isn't that big of an issue for this storm. I mean, this isn't no Eastern Pacific like kind of weakening where you're having the effects of cooler waters and the increasing wind shear, and you have a storm go from a mid Cat 1 hurricane to a remnant low in 24 hours. We're not having that, unfortunately. But wind shear right now over Beryl is, I'm just looking now, it's a pretty consistent 20-25 knots. That is as far as tropical cyclones go. That is fairly high. But keep in mind that Beryl is over. There's a lot of other mitigating factors for this that are helping it fight off the wind shear, and thankfully those are going in the storm's favor.
Additionally, the further north it tracks before the Yucatan gives it a better chance later on because less land traveled. If it does move further south, that would be some good news in terms of the storm weakening, and also it would mean it's further south as well later on. I'm just looking back at some historic storms, and as a general rule, if the storm makes a good proper landfall over the Yucatan, somewhere south of Tulum, and it continues on through to the Gulf, usually it knocks a storm down at least 2 categories.
And do keep in mind that it all depends on how much rain we're going to be seeing from this storm over the Yucatan Peninsula. I'll bring up the GFS model right now on my end. We're going to stay with your screen though, Nathan, just to see just how much rainfall we're going to be seeing.
Well, I know already from doing the bulletin earlier, it's about 6 inches.
6 inches, okay. That's not
roughly
too terrible. So, but there's another thing that you have to keep in mind. There's also topography. You see hurricanes go over Cuba and Hispaniola. That's going to be the Dominican Republic and Haiti and Puerto Rico. You have hurricanes like David in 1979 went over Hispaniola, Maria 2017 into Puerto Rico, and I'm not sure if there's any. Paloma 2009 went into Cuba. All 3 of those hurricanes have something very much in common. They were completely destroyed by the land interaction that they were going into. David went from a Cat 5 down to a tropical storm just passing over Hispaniola. So land interaction can do things to hurricanes. But Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti, and Puerto Rico all have something in common. They are very mountainous. The Yucatan Peninsula, I mean, it is hilly, but for the most part, it is flat. And it is nothing but basically jungle out there. So there's going to be a lot more moisture, I guess you could say, because it's going into a jungly terrain and flat terrain. So there's not going to be a whole lot of impeding land interaction to really weaken this storm. Obviously, it's going to weaken a little bit. It's going to weaken down to probably a tropical storm. But like if this was a Category 5 coming up on Mexico here, we'd probably only be seeing weakening maybe down to maybe a Cat 3 by the time it was back in the Gulf of Mexico, Nathan.
Depends. I'm going on a deep dive into the data right now on that, as to how much it could possibly weaken. The furthest south a storm made landfall and didn't lose 2 categories was a hurricane in 1887, which made landfall on Cozumel, but it was moving nearly due north, so it really only clipped the Yucatan. Now, the ones that were moving west, it would then have to be, I think, no, not even that one, but basically we're looking at Puerto Morelos, somewhere around there, for a landfall if it was not to weaken very much. So we're in pretty good hands here that the storm, with climatology, that this storm should weaken a lot after it moves inland and should emerge on the other side as a tropical storm. Very few storms have made a proper pass over the Yucatan and emerged still as a hurricane. The only one that did is actually no, there's a handful, but the only one that wasn't a Cat 5 that did was Roxanne in 1995, and then it weakened to a TS after it moved back over, so not really comparable anyway. So, the signs are good that we'll see a lot of weakening to what the Hurricane Center's forecasting, but in the interim, we are looking at this storm staying strong up to landfall. I'm still not sold on it being less than a Category 3 by then, but we're really hoping that it stays a bit further south, which might give us a bit more of a chance of not only the storm being over less populated areas, but also a bigger shot at weakening.
So you think that the storm might be a Category 3 when it makes landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula, Nathan?
I think the latest estimate forecast is it will probably just... I think it might collapse just before it makes landfall and still be a strong Cat 2 when it hits.
I think it might be a fair bit weaker than that.
Well, I hope you're right. But that's my thoughts on it at the moment. AF302 coming in northwest Iowa right now as well, so we should get some more data on that soon.
Absolutely. So let's go to the National Hurricane Center's cone and key messages. So they are saying that right now, strong winds and dangerous storm surge, damaging waves, and areas of flooding are expected to occur in the Cayman Islands, where a hurricane warning remains in effect. At this point, I expect that those conditions, well, the winds and especially, are going to be gradually subsiding with time, as Beryl is now pulling away from the Cayman Islands. Although now you're on the northeastern side, so you're getting that onshore flow from the circulation of Beryl. So I imagine that the storm turn right now is probably near its worst right now in the Cayman Islands. I don't know if there's any live cameras that you could be able to grab for me, Nathan, in the Cayman Islands, but if there are any, do
I
let me
haven't
know.
looked, but I heard from, I think, a viewer that they've all been shut down.
Ah.
So that's what I've heard.
Continuing here, hurricane-force winds, dangerous storm surge, and heavy rain are expected to impact portions of the Yucatan Peninsula and Belize beginning tonight as Beryl approaches the area as a hurricane. Hurricane and tropical storm warnings are now in effect for portions of those areas, and they have been for the past day or so. And here's the most important section of this key messages graphic. There remains uncertainty in the track and intensity forecast of Beryl over the western Gulf of Mexico this weekend. Interest in the eastern Mexico and southern Texas, including the Houston metro. I wouldn't even, if you're still in Houston, still watch this closely. Should monitor the progress of Beryl, regardless of the exact track rip currents could cause. Life-threatening beach conditions beginning late Friday and continuing through the weekend across much of the Gulf Coast.
There actually is a camera, Ethan.
Okay.
This is on the West Bay, I think it is, on the west coast anyway, so facing right into the storm here. Live camera there. I'm surprised we've got
interesting.
This is in the Cayman Islands?
Yeah, Cayman Islands. Grand Cayman, looking west.
That's very interesting. Those conditions look rather sedate, to be honest.
It is true, yeah. But once again, we think about how tight this core is. And let me just get a double check the distance. It is a good 65 kilometers away from the eye now. So theoretically, it should have just be exiting hurricane conditions.
So the NHC's latest advisory said that it's 50 miles southwest of Grand Cayman right now. And the hurricane force winds will hit outwards of 45 nautical miles. In particular, that's going to be on the, looks like, I want to say, what side was it? The northeast side.
Yeah. So literally hurricane force winds just leaving now. You look out over the water there, Ethan, though, you can see loads of winds blowing across the sea there. So, you know, on land, maybe those winds aren't quite as high. You go out just a couple of miles, it's probably you're getting hurricane force winds. I'm sure it's a very pretty picture, though, when it's good weather there.
Well, let's hope that
even now the colors are
to remain relatively sedate across the region. Let's hope so.
Well, they would have had worse earlier, but you know they're on the back side of the storm now. It's going to get better from here on in. Do you want me to leave this running?
Up to you. We do have a question here. What is the fatality count so far for Beryl?
I heard the other day it was 17. It's probably higher now.
Then I would say, I don't know, probably at least 15 unfortunately have lost their lives due to this storm.
Yeah, I doubt I'll have the latest info, but I'll just have a little look and see if I can find something on that. Um, 150 injured.
So, but Beryl right now is around 24 hours from making landfall right now on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Forecast to be a Category 1 hurricane whenever it gets there. There's the latest National Hurricane Center's forecast cone. We'll blow it up here nice and big for you. Still forecast to be, as I just said, a Category 1 with winds, I believe, of 90 miles an hour whenever it gets there. I believe that's what the NHC is forecasting right now.
Really? They were forecasting Category 2 until this morning.
I'm not sure. Let me just check the latest discussion. Yeah, at that 2 a.m. Friday point in 24 hours, well, less than 24 hours now, they are forecasting only a 90-mile-an-hour hurricane there.
Well, I am surprised.
And then they've also got that hurricane point in northern Mexico near Texas as a
Yeah.
75-mile-an-hour hurricane. That could change too.
Yeah, just some other info that may be of interest. 1,000 people were evacuated in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and 2,500 were evacuated in Grenada. 500 evacuated in Jamaica, apparently. Only 500. And what I'm seeing here, I saw people say 17 the other day, but I'm only seeing 7 from official sources. 3 in Grenada, 1 in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and 3 in Venezuela, and 5 still missing there. So it may be 12.
Well, of course, I do hope for the best in the recovery efforts for Beryl, especially across the Lesser Antilles, where Beryl hit by far the hardest. I think Jamaica, to be honest, fared much better for this storm, even though that the northern eye wall did end up passing over Jamaica.
Oh yeah, well, in the lead up to that, we were thinking that Kingston could have had the eye of the storm, and it didn't turn out to be that far away. If this was a bigger storm, it would have been much worse for all of Jamaica. The bigger populations there, just slightly further north. In the end, I know the NHC said that Kingston got an 81-mile-an-hour gust. I don't know if that was the highest they got in the end, and they got sustained winds of 48.
You were asking us, will Beryl be retired?
Oh, jeez.
Well, let's get through the storm
It's
first.
too early to say, but from personal standpoint, I believe it will, but it's still too early to say. I mean, the storm's
Can't
still
see it not doing. I can't see it not doing. Not that many Category 5s don't get retired. Although Emily is one.
Lorenz is another, if you go by the NHC.
Yeah.
Bill Adams
But ones that
asks,
affected land, I mean, yeah, go on.
Yeah, Bill Adams asks, any real chance of a right turn towards Houston, or is that completely off the table now? I would not discount a turn towards Houston. I wouldn't say that it's completely off the table. I would just say that the chance of it happening right now is still very, very low. I do think that Houston is just a little bit too far north for this storm's reach. Albeit, anything's possible with this storm. It's still a very low confidence situation, and forecasts can still change. I mean, just look at Hurricane Ian whenever it was hitting Florida. Whenever it was 24 hours out from landfall, we were still thinking that it was going to hit up near Tampa. And the area that it ended up making landfall, that was outside of the forecast cone 24 hours prior to landfall.
Not off the table, but Houston currently has about a 2% chance of storm conditions. Galveston at 5%.
Yeah, I'd like to just quickly add, I was looking at an ensemble overlay with the satellite presentation of Beryl, and currently the center seems to be just teetering on that northern edge of that of those ensemble plots.
Absolutely. It's going to be a fairly low confidence situation over the next, I'd say, probably 2 days of this storm's life. We'll have a much better idea of where this storm will go, really once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. But first, let's get through this Yucatan Peninsula landfall first.
I've thrown it back to my satellite as I have a little hunt round, see if there's any other pictures that we can look at. But that was a general scene from that was near Georgetown on the west coast. So it was looking directly into the hurricane there.
Someone asking us, can Monterey get storm force conditions?
Yes, they could.
They absolutely could. But the question is, to what extent?
At the moment, they have about a 10 or 11% chance of storm force winds. So, there's quite a way for the storm to go inland before it reaches Monterey. And it does look like they'd be on the south side. So, it's not a given, but the chance is there, given how poor the southern side is. It may... There's actually a camera that was online as well. I'm going to get this for you in just a sec here. But it shows, it has playback. So this is what one of the cameras looked like earlier on. This was just before 6 a.m. when the hurricane would have been near its height. And whilst it's not the best quality, it goes to show another viewpoint there of what the conditions were looking like. And if we bring it to live right now, they're getting a lot of rain. Waves still crashing up there, but they should be out of the hurricane conditions on Grand Cayman.
Good news for the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's with that roof where there's a bunch of debris on it or not. I can't figure out what that is.
That might even be just parts of the ocean, maybe.
What, on the roof?
Yeah. Or something.
What, like seaweed?
Yeah, maybe my best guess. Someone from San Antonio is just telling us in the chat that they are very curious how the storm is panning out. They know that they won't get hurricane force winds, but the rainfall threat in San Antonio.
And we know what Texas can be like with rainfall. At the moment, we're seeing indications of maximum rainfall up near 12 inches, 300 millimeters. Something compounding the forecast, though, Ethan. About 2 days after Beryl, 96L could have a little shot at development in the Gulf.
Sure. Shall we pan over to 96L real quick?
Well, it looks awful at the moment.
I do say that the quality of the satellite imagery on my end is going to be much, much worse compared to yours, because you can see there's Nathan's and here's mine, because I'm using the full disc now. So there's Beryl, and I think 96L. Where is 96L? Is it that mess south of Hispaniola right now?
I'm waiting for your feed to come up. Yeah.
Oh, that is.
Just
So this is
just a message. Yeah. Sorry, just a message to the chat. Don't be promoting other channels. You will get timed out.
Well,
so here's 96L. This giant mess of clouds of thunderstorms. This is 96L, and I believe that the NHC has a 20% chance of it right now.
Yeah, I had 40% yesterday, and I put it down to 30. It still has a chance later on, but by no means is it a given now.
And
it looks awful today.
And to think that the system once in its life had a 70% chance of development, it was going to be a major threat towards these islands back towards the east, but not anymore, thankfully.
You know something, right? I just want to share real quick what the has-to-be model, one of the newer and better performing models of the hurricane ensemble we have going on right now. This is what it was supposed to verify for right now, as of yesterday, 21 hours ago. I posted in the live output. That's what's supposed to be what we're supposed to be looking at right now. And that has failed to verify in any way.
It was forecasting what looks to be 990 millibars, of course. Pressure's still down at 968 currently.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez. I mean, I would much prefer what it forecasted as what we have right now.
Recon update here. NOAA 3 have finished. They're heading back. AF 302 just entering the eye again now. Northwest quadrant. They got a flight level wind of only 80 knots and an SFMR of also 80 knots in the northwest side. So that's pretty poor.
I'd like to see the pass whenever that loads on in. So a lot of questions coming through. Is there a chance for Beryl to re-strengthen before its Yucatan Peninsula landfall? I would say there is. I would say that there might be a small chance of it, but it's incredibly low confidence at the moment. Would you agree with me there, Nathan?
Sorry, I was just figuring out whether they had recon graphics on the WSV3, but they don't. What did you say?
Does Beryl have any chance to re-strengthen before it hits the Yucatan?
Yeah, I still think it could. I'd obviously like it not to.
I mean, how much do you think it could strengthen?
Only a little.
Yeah,
Not much.
Yeah, I only think it could like sustain itself as a Category 3, and that's it.
I mean, it doesn't really look like Category 3.
I would just like to add that the shear values are only expected to decline moving away from the Cayman Islands. So,
Good.
That would be nice. We'll have to see what happens with that, but certainly
Yeah, but
northwest eyewall there looks. At least I'm quite pleased to see that they're only getting. What was it again? 80 knot flight level winds and 80 knot SFMRs.
it's like 90 knot flight level and 73 knot SFMR on the southeast side.
They would have got southeast.
Yep.
Wow.
90 knot flight level, 73 knot flight level, or 90 knot flight level, 73 knot SFMR. So clearly the southeastern side is the weakest side of the storm right now.
Well, no, northwest was just weaker than that. I think the only thing propping this up now is the northeast side.
Maybe. It does appear that this storm is on the verge of dropping below major status, if you ask me.
Can't disagree with that.
Question here: do we think that in our lifetimes we will see a June Category 5 in the Atlantic?
Huh.
We very nearly did.
I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised, but it is unlikely.
Beryl proved that it is possible, basically. But I would
Quite happened, but it was nearly there.
I would say that it's entirely possible. Would I say that it's likely? Absolutely not. But I mean, who knows? I mean, there's a little storm in 1973 in the NHC's area of responsibility and the across Mexico called Ava that happened.
Yes, it did. I'd be intrigued to know if, because you know that, what was it? That study that they did, that storm study, where they basically generated a whole 1,000 years of hurricane seasons. I'd like to know if there was a June Cat 5 in any of that. That might tell us how statistically possible it would be, but I'm very low. I was just checking the data there, but I can't. I've not got the way to encode that data right now. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Anyways, still an impressive storm then, entering over the rest of the Caribbean. National Hurricane Center will update in an hour.
Absolutely, and they will be doing a full update. That'll be a full shift, so new cone, new discussion, new wind speeds, new everything.
And from the data we've got, it doesn't look like they'll need to change the forecast very much, but there could be a nudge north.
Not sure on the track forecast, but I can tell you that the wind speed is definitely going down.
The advisory wind, yeah.
Yeah, ATCF is already down at 115 already.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, that's something.
Yeah, 115 miles an hour, 969 millibars. That's what they went with. That's what they went with.
Yeah. So I don't see any reason for them not to do that.
They can drop it lower.
So let me just I want to see more of that aircraft data.
You know,
I'm just seeing that other side now. So yeah, they got 90 knots, but SFMRs have only 75 knots. So based on
Guys,
this, yeah,
I was gonna say just for my sake, because I've been out of the loop for a few days. This storm is continuously weakening, right?
well, as slowly as we've ever seen. Well, not ever seen, but it's slow weakening.
Well, at least it is weakening.
I'm
if
just
slowly.
looking now, and honestly, I think there's a case to put it down to 110 here. Personally, we'll want to have another northeast eyewall pass, because that is by far the strongest, about 105 knot winds. If that goes down any further, then we're not looking at a Cat 3 anymore, are we?
yeah, I'd agree. Something interesting right now is the current, because of that northerly deviation that's currently going with in comparison to the ensembles and model solutions that we've had so far today and this morning. Seems as though that maybe by 11 a.m., a bit more of Cozumel will be under that cone of uncertainty if this keeps up.
We do have the cone right now up on the left-hand side of our screen. That's the latest one from the intermediate update at that was about 2 hours ago, where they did indeed maintain the wind speed at 120 miles an hour. I honestly thought that they would lower it then, but they did maintain 120. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, earlier on, yeah.
But it's probably down to
And that was
115
advisory 23A, and I guess we're expecting the next NHC update within not this upcoming hour, but the next hour.
Yeah.
That will be 15 Zulu.
Was it actually the National Hurricane Center that said that wind shear would increase?
No, I was saying the wind shear was going to decrease moving forward.
Model output is showing a decrease of 10 knots this afternoon.
Yeah, that's not good because, I mean, seeing how this has held up so far, that core has not gone away. So it's not like, unlike the models that gradually, maintain its intensity of the Yucatan or even make it a little bit stronger. I mean, given that there's still a core with this storm, given that it has gone through periods of closing and reopening that eye wall, with 10 knots lower shear, who's to say it doesn't begin to just gradually reorganize?
I'm just reading the latest NHC discussion. And it says water vapor images show an upper level trough. By the way, this is the discussion from 5 a.m. Eastern. Obviously, we're going to be in a new one in about an hour here. Moving west-southwestward over the southern Gulf of Mexico, helping to impart the moderate to strong shear over Beryl. While the hurricane has been an overperformer so far, this magnitude of wind shear should cause notable weakening over the next day or so. But Beryl is to still be a hurricane near the Yucatan tomorrow. And that's it. That's all they say about the weakening.
I'm going to zoom out, Ethan, and I want to show you what's going on in the other part, East Pac. This could be becoming a tropical cyclone right now.
It absolutely could.
Oh, East Pacific. Oh, of course.
Yeah, that is Invest Area 91E, I think is what the number is.
Yep.
Yeah.
91E has a nice little band, convection blowing up near the center, if it has a center. And without being able to know what's going on at the surface, ASCAT is still at least a couple of hours away. I would be tempted to designate that as a tropical depression.
To be honest, though, for some reason the floater has the center at like a east of the where you think the center is.
Nah, it's right there. If it has a center, and it would be tiny as well, another tiny storm.
So maybe the floater's wrong. I don't know.
I think it will be. I mean,
Of
it's
course,
not
if
even half the
that's-
size of Beryl, and Beryl's small, so it's small.
Yeah.
Of course, if that storm does end up forming and does end up becoming a tropical storm, it would get the name Aletta. That would be the first name.
And we would narrowly be averting the latest start in the satellite era over there.
It already is.
Oh, jeez. How long
No,
until
2 more days.
2 more days, right?
1964 started on July 6th.
And that's the latest ever start.
Since satellites, and before then, well, God knows what happened out there. I mean, there could have been tons of stuff we never saw. I'm sure there was.
Breaking news: special tropical weather outlook for 91E.
Oh, there we go then.
Early visible satellite images indicate that the shower and thunderstorm activity continues to become better organized in association with Invest 91E, located a couple hundred miles offshore of the southern coast of Mexico. Additionally, the circulation of the system appears to have become better defined since yesterday. If these development trends continue, they will, guarantee you, advisories will likely be initiated on a tropical depression next hour. The system is forecast to move northwestward through tonight and turn westward on Friday, remaining offshore Mexico. Formation chance through 48 hours is now set at high 80%.
Yep, it's got a very small amount of time though. So
80% within what, a day?
2 days, but right,
2
you know,
days.
it's now or never for that system. Really, well, models at least suggest that conditions will turn right against it very soon.
So that looks to be the likely start of the 2024 Pacific hurricane season, finally.
I think we have a drop zone data, 972 millibars at 6 knots in the eye. So it's going to be 970s now then on that info.
Definitely.
By low 970s, if I had to guess.
Probably 971 there. And at 998 millibars, they got a wind of 58 knots in the southeast eye wall. Don't know how far away from the center that is. But at 998 millibars, it's probably a fair distance away.
Beryl's still fighting. It's trying to hold its own. And it's going to need to do that, I imagine, now for just a fair bit while longer.
I think at this point it is a relatively safe call to put it at 110 miles per hour, but that's just me.
I mean, in my eyes, that does not look like a Category 3 to me.
Well, it never looked like a Category 4 yesterday, did it? You know.
I was busy yesterday. I had no time to look at Beryl yesterday.
Sure.
Oh wow! I don't know if anyone heard that, but that is thunder here. Interesting.
Oh really?
But anyway, back to Beryl. iPlay would still host it at 115, given that clearly the northern eye wall has and almost always has been the one with the strongest winds throughout the majority of the storm's life. The chances are, I think they're missing out on the strongest winds of the storm.
They need to sample northeast again. That's where they are. But if they've gone down anything compared to last time, then I don't think it's a Cat 3. And you would think that with the other sides going down, that northeast has probably gone down as well. But that's just my take on it. Nonetheless, still a powerful hurricane. Ethan, I'm going to have to take my leave, I'm afraid.
And we will be as well. I'm going to be calling it a day here. Unfortunately, we are going to be ending our coverage. I imagine you're going to be hosting a live stream this afternoon, right?
Yeah, we don't have a time set yet, but we should have a fair amount of live coverage later this evening.
In the meantime, the automated stream is running, right?
Sure is. Oh, sorry,
Yes.
Ethan, I just turned that off on your screen.
No, you're fine. Just going back over to the visible imagery here, just trying to pop back over to Beryl here, if I can. There it is. What a beautiful sunrise image of Beryl right now, rising up over the storm. Major hurricane, Category 3, weakening, passing the Cayman Islands moving towards the Yucatan Peninsula. Once again, a Category 3 and weakening. Still going to be a hurricane whenever it makes landfall over the Yucatan Peninsula. Christian.
I was just going to say, it's still barreling towards the Yucatan, isn't it?
Absolutely. Barreling towards the Yucatan. As you could say that.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll be back this afternoon with more live coverage on this hurricane as it poses a dangerous threat to the Yucatan Peninsula. And if you know anyone touristing in the area, please let them know. Time is running out to prepare. Less than 24 hours until the storm makes landfall in the Yucatan. We'll see you this afternoon for more live coverage. And
in the meantime, the automated stream is running.
Indeed. And we are going to be directing you right back over towards that automated stream, I imagine, here. Or I'm trying to get it. I don't think I have it set up, unfortunately. But thank you, guys, and we'll see you this afternoon for more live coverage, and stay safe and prepare adequately in the path of this dangerous hurricane. Major Category 3, even though it looks bad on satellite imagery, it still poses a dangerous risk. Have a good night, and enjoy the 4th of July for those U.S. folks.